Human emotion is complicated enough. But how is technology impacting the way we emote, the way we feel, particularly empathy? How we are able to feel the feelings of others. Does technology help us? Does it detract from our ability? And how is it changing the way we express our emotions in this world? That and a whole lot more on the rundown. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rundown. Good to see you here on this Thursday evening. Congratulations to all of my Catholic friends who have a new pope. From a deep dish pope, we have a Chicago pope, the first time ever an American pope. It's really very, very exciting, and I'm not sure what the appropriate greeting is to Catholic friends, but whatever it is, I'm sending it to you. And I'm also sending a big hello to my friends right here with me. Tamara, how are you?
I am good. How are you today?
Good. Were you looking for the smoke or no?
So I was listening for who the smoke was, while I was driving from down the coast of California today.
Nice. I
But
just
I'm Lutheran, so I'm Catholic light.
Catholic light.
So,
I was listening. They had the pope's the new pope's brother lives in Chicago, and everyone has been interviewing him. And I was thinking to myself, goodness gracious, like what is that even? What do you do with that? Becoming the
right.
pope's brother. That's
It's like so crazy.
you know who might actually be able to give us some insight into all this is Brother Tony. How you doing, sir?
Greetings, greetings, everybody.
Were were
Glad to
you
be
looking for
here.
the smoke?
I was,
And are you happy with the
and
choice?
yes, I'm very happy with the choice because I think, will expand upon what Pope Francis has done.
Yeah,
So I'm excited,
I am too.
and the things that he's already shared are extremely encouraging.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's what is I boy watching them close the doors yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? Just watching those doors close to the Sistine Chapel. I mean, the pageantry is just unbelievable. It's as inspiring. It really is. It's almost as inspiring as my friend Lois. Hi, Lois.
Hello there. I was thinking that, the theological choice of a pope, it's supposed to be um, channeling God, and you get God's wish as to who's going to be the head of the church on earth.
Right.
So if you are the brother of the pope, well, that makes you related to God a little more closely than some of us.
I just
But
yeah.
The Quakers, the Quakers gave up all of the pageantry, and we just kept the connection to God. So,
Right.
but I wanted to show you all my shirt. Isn't that beautiful? It's tie-dye because Whole Earth Festival is this weekend. I know none of you are in Davis, but if you were, you could go and have a good time.
That's lovely. Thank you. Here's someone who isn't in Davis, but he's got a name like Davis.
Hmm.
Boy, my transitions today are just fantastic. How you doing, Dave?
You're really segueing really
Thank
well
you.
today.
Thank
Yes.
you. I'm the king, the master of segues. How are you today, sir?
I'm married to a Catholic. I'm not, but yes, schooled all the time in some of these things. So
Yeah.
she wasn't too concerned about who the Pope is. She was just unhappy that we don't have Francis anymore. So
Yeah, I understand that. And your new, congratulations, you have a new prime minister who held
yes,
his own this week. It
went to
was,
university here in Edmonton.
did you really? That's wonderful.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And he was born up north, so he has a very clear understanding of how enormous our country is.
wow, wow, beautiful. And last but most definitely not least, hello, Sky.
Hello, David.
How are you today?
Well, I was inspired by Tamara, as always, because she referred to herself as Lutheran, which is Catholic light, which makes being raised as a Methodist preacher's kid, if we're doing the milk analogies, she would be like 2%, which makes Methodist like 1%. I don't know. So that that makes you, David.
Oat
That
milk.
makes you whole. No, whole milk. That makes you whole milk.
Okay.
Because the lineage, because we're cousins in that way. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
you're welcome.
This is the craziest conversation. Let's jump into the
You
news.
started it.
I know. Oh my Lord, let's do it. All right. First up today, not numb or dumb. So there was a big announcement from Amazon. There were actually a couple big announcements that I saw this week from Amazon. One was about their quantum computer. They are also building a quantum computer. But this one was about this new robot that they have called Vulcan. And what's special about Vulcan is that Vulcan can feel. That is to say, he has these pressure plates, or I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, sensors in his flat little hands there that you see, and he can feel what's between, so he knows how much pressure, so he's not going to break things by squeezing too hard. And apparently, this is a huge deal for Amazon because up until now, the robots that they've used have only been able to handle about 60% of what comes through their warehouses. But Vulcan can control can handle 75% of every single item that goes through Amazon's warehouses. Now, apparently, it struggles with bowling balls. That's what I saw in the video. It struggles with round things, but there are two of them right now. There's one here stateside, and there's one in Germany, I believe. But this is pretty exciting. They have spent a lot of time in these announcements talking about how this isn't about taking jobs away, although there will be a lot of jobs shifting because of this new technology, shifting toward maintenance for the robots, developing the robots, building the robots, all those different things. So I'm curious, what do any of you have a take on how important this might be? We've talked about robotics and consumer goods before, but according to Amazon, this is a really big piece of the puzzle. And sorry, let me share one last thing, and that is that the work that this robot can do, that it will replace, is the repetitive work. It's the putting in and pulling out, putting in and pulling out, which apparently is incredibly stressful on the Amazon workers physically. And when the items are either up high or down low, it's even worse. And so apparently there's what they call this, I don't remember the word, but there's a zone, right? The best zone for them to work in. And what this robot can do is hit those above their heads and below their knees areas to help them out. So what do you think? Is this a big deal? Is this a nothing? What do you say?
Well, at least they'll be able to store their bowling balls at chest level.
Well, right. They will have to lift their bowling balls themselves, though. Yeah.
Well, you look at the factory line at any auto manufacturing, and the history there was being protected by the unions, and to the point that manufacturers said, okay, we're not going to replace you, but and unions did their best, but effectively the machines are now doing the repetitive tasks of large manufacturings of large machines such as automobiles. So that these are doing small tasks, that they are, I'm reading your article here, it says that they are learning from their own mistakes, which is which is almost a cognitive experience that we're at now, which is different than 20 years ago in Detroit. So yeah. The repetitive tasks, replacing humans, humans are still going to be humans, just doing different things.
Absolutely. There are over 750,000 robots in their fulfillment centers. I think most of them are the flat top robots that just drive the things around. One of the things that I found fascinating about this is that these robots, especially things like Vulcan and other large robots, are all behind gates. They're all fenced in.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
You wouldn't want them stolen and you wouldn't want them to escape.
No, it has nothing to do with it. They're not-
You don't want them to escape. That's what it is.
This is
No,
going to be a
Lois,
good
they're not
night.
running away. Oh my God.
Have you not seen the swimming pools in Southern California? You have to have a gate around it to keep the kids from falling
That's
in.
right.
I don't know. It feels a little I don't know. I worry that if we have to protect ourselves from them, then maybe they're not ready for prime time. I think that's
We're
my
protecting them from bad guys who might want to come and steal them.
Right.
No,
I think
that's
that's
not.
what-
No, it's for worker safety. It's for
Right.
worker safety.
Well, here's the thing. Like this is speaking to the nature of how work is changing, right? Because from a business standpoint, it makes perfect sense that you would try to use a robot to do repetitive things. But when you look at how we think immediately of the people who are being phased out of a job, and they're saying it's not that they're not going to have work, they're going to do other work. The other work they're talking about is white collar work where people have to have specialized knowledge in order to take care of robots. But if you play it out all the way down the line, workers' comp claims are going to go down. That affects insurance companies. That affects employees there. It affects less people in the factories working. That means that all of the neighboring places that support those workers are actually going to be impacted as well. But that's happening in every single part of work. And I think that it's speaking to a larger issue of how is work changing and how are all of these technologies making work look different, and it is affecting way more than the immediate people were thinking about.
That's
It's actually
absolutely true.
affecting all communities that service those workers, and so I think that's
So-
kind of another piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely.
As
Scott, take it.
a tacky response, that think of all those urgent care facilities now are going to be put out of work. Sorry, that's a bad
Urgent care
joke.
But it's like in a way, like that makes perfect sense from a business point of view. I don't want to pay high premiums in workers' compensation. I don't actually want to be responsible for workers being hurt, but it also does impact all of the service people. That I don't think it's a reason not to do it, but I do think it's a reason that we are, as we're talking about these technological changes in the environment that is work, we have to kind of be thinking about it is a disruptor way more than the initial thing we always kind of hear, which is we're displacing workers. When you look at the automotive industry, that's a perfect example because an entire community shut down. And it wasn't just the community of people who went and worked in those factories. It was all of the surrounding things that serviced the people who worked in those factories.
And that shows everything is connected, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this robot is going to be a major player in what's going on, because there are so many other factors, so many other things, so many other chances. And so every day people are laid off, or they're out of work, or they can't do a particular job or whatever, and that's life.
Right. Here's the thing. I agree with you, Lois. I don't think this robot necessarily is going to change the world, but I do think that this is yet another step on a road that is becoming very, very familiar to all of us, because we keep hearing about it. And when the big companies say that they have a big robot that can do big work, that's, I'm not saying good, bad, or otherwise, it is transformative. And this feels like this could be, because Amazon handles billions of packages every year. If anyone knows what you need in a fulfillment center to make your business hum, and you are a packaging and shipping and selling, you're Amazon. It's Amazon, right? They know what they need, and they are developing what they need, which means other people will be able to perhaps use the same technologies.
And it also means that they're finding a response to problems that they were having, and this is a solution to the problems. So Amazon is probably going to stay in business longer because they've solved some problem or other. So I guess I'm more life changes, that happens.
Right.
Well, the
But I
bigger
think
problem
that
is going to
there's
be filling the fulfillment centers with product. since we don't have ships coming in from
Well,
China.
that's all right. That's a whole other thing.
The
You're
whole
absolutely
other
right.
deal.
Is it?
This
Is it?
well, no, it's a strange time for this announcement. I agree with you, because given that, right? Which I haven't seen yet, but I'm told it's a week or two out.
I just saw pictures of the
It's a
Seattle Harbor
gamble.
empty, so that's
Really?
all I'm.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tony, go
so-
for it.
I was kind of looking at it from the other point of view, from the standpoint of, let's say that you use these robots to fulfill all of the task. If you have the robots doing all of the tasks, then if people have not transitioned to some other type of work, then they are out of work. Well, then the question becomes, who is going to make the purchases from Amazon if there's no one working? I'm just trying to figure out, there has to be a way in which people can continue to have a living, therefore being able to make purchases so that Amazon can continue to have businesses. But if you have people who are not able to work, not able to have an income, then how does Amazon continue?
I
But I think
the
that's
thing-
exactly what
the
speaks-
percentage of people who are in those particular jobs that are being transitioned out. Now, there's lots of other workers at Amazon, and Amazon is not employing everybody in the world. So I hear what you're
Well,
saying, Tony, but I don't think we have to worry about that.
That wasn't meant to speak specifically to Amazon. It was
Right.
to, when you,
In general.
this conversation tonight is about empathy, right? So if you have the majority of the public that have been replaced by machines, not just talking about Amazon, we're talking about automobile makers, we're talking about anything that is mass produced by workers that are being replaced by machines. So if you don't have a way in which the populace can make purchases, I just see it as, and I am definitely an advocate for technology and the use of it, but I am particularly concerned in this climate in which we live, where there is, or there seems to be, a lack of empathy, a lack of concern, a lack of care for those that are at the bottom. And I'm just not sure that if there is not a mass way in which people can transition to doing the jobs that has already been mentioned, if there's not a way in which, be it in regular high schools or training academies or something that is going to allow the populace to be able to transition into something that will allow them to be able to provide new skills in this. If there is something that is in place where people can earn a living based on being able to operate within this new technology, then I think we're good.
Amazon's
But if not,
This
Amazon's
is what
answer to that would be that they have an apprenticeship program where they pay their employees to gain the skills to learn about robotics, and then those new jobs in turn pay, I want to say 40% more than the current the shelving jobs and that. So that would be their answer to that, which is it's 12 weeks of in-person classroom learning, 2,000 apprenticeship hours, and job placement. But you're right, Tony. I just want
I
to
don't know
say,
where the
let me just say this last thing, and that is that you said the people on the bottom. It's those of us that are doing the menial work that are going to be most significantly impacted by the new technology, because that's what this new technology is great at, right? New technology is fantastic at writing low level code. You don't really need an assistant programmer anymore, because you have Cursor and you've got Gemini and you've got all these other tools. What you need is the top level person who can
But that
visualize.
top level person had a ladder where they were learning
Oh
when
no,
they were in a
this is
low level position.
this is a
And
problem. Yes.
this is, so the thing is, Tony's right. And we're seeing it not in just this industry. We're seeing it. That's the issue we're having in the TV and film industry, is that that the people at the top are no longer valuing human contribution because they can get things done quicker and faster. And even though I'm a business person and I'm like, yeah, you're right, you should be able to do things quicker and faster, we are running the risk of every single industry looking at quicker and faster and saying we don't need humans in this position, we need to downsize. We're seeing it in vast ways in every single sector. And at what point did the two things crash into each other, where you have replaced the value of a human worker and investing in your workers? And Amazon is saying that they are going to invest in their workers, and I love that for them, but that is not what is happening. It's not what we're seeing happen in industries.
They've been doing it since 2020. And Gary Lund, who's watching, is saying is calling our attention to universal basic income.
Yep.
Oh, so we are going to land in a starship somewhere in the universe. Captain Kirk.
Amazon also hires a lot of people through third-party organizations, and they are not employees of Amazon. So this is also a company who can say, I've invested in these employees and I'm doing these programs, but it's also a company who has stopped hiring internally and will outsource that hiring for a lot of their jobs through freelance positions. So
Microsoft has blue badges and orange badges. And if you're a blue badge, you work for the company. Right. If you're the other 80% of the people that work on contract through a third party, you are an orange badge and you don't get the benefits, blah, blah, blah. Right. And so because that way you can be let go at any moment without any recompense. And that came after a long lawsuit. So Microsoft said, well, we're going to pay more for these people in between. And that, I think that's the same construct at Amazon here in town and many other locations. So,
and
it's not they're not the only ones. So.
No. So where I was going to go rabbit trail. The construct of Tony's, where do we start? Well, this is a marketplace. Remember, the original marketplace is the food, and the farmer would bring it in and you would buy something, and then it became a general store, and then the commoditization of manufacturing came in, and then JCPenney's came along, and then the catalog, and then Walmart comes along, and then now this is just the next iteration of consumer and moving products along from a manufacturing point of view. How do you make it cheaper and sell it and not store it? And that was Walmart's big gifting, was they had the QR code so that on your Safeway store, as soon as that tube of toothpaste went off and was scanned through, the next piece was being created and shipped to Walmart, but it never stopped moving until it got onto the shelf, because warehousing is what is expensive. And so this is the Tamara, what's that called? Right now, right, or ready?
Just in time.
Just in time. So thank you, Dave.
Yeah, just in time instead of, I was just watching a podcast that was talking about
where did that fit into this conversation? I don't know.
Yeah.
So
all right, last
one
word,
of
Lois.
the things for us to think about is none of us own a giant company. We can't change what that giant company is going to do, but we are all consumers, and we can choose who we buy things from, where we get stuff. We have a choice. We are the customers. So let's be conscious of what we're doing.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Next, Nonprofit AI for all. So you may have heard that OpenAI, they've had a little kerfuffle as of late because they wanted to go be a for-profit company. That's not entirely this whole story. They wanted to establish a for-profit arm or part of the company, or maybe separate company underneath a parent company, whatever, because they did not anticipate how much money they were actually going to need. The scaling of has just blown beyond anything they ever expected. Without any surprise to any of us, a lot of people didn't like this idea. And so they announced that OpenAI is to remain under nonprofit control in change of restructuring plans. This was announced. It was also announced, by the way, that they're bringing in a new CEO, that there's going to be some changes with Sam
Administration.
Excuse me, that he's not going anywhere, but he's going to be shifting in his role. So here's my question. Right now, we can all access AI. There are lots of AI tools out there. Most of them have some sort of free entry point, right? ChatGPT is free at the basic level. Do technologies like this need to be free so that everyone can have access to them? Or
Need?
should they be free?
Should and need are two separate words.
Okay, I mean should.
mean
Need
should,
they
okay.
be? Should they be? Must they be free so that everyone can have access to them? Is a freemium model like essentially what we have now, is that a good plan? Or is it right that OpenAI, which is spending billions of dollars to give us these tools, is it right for them to be able to say, you know what? We'd like to take this to the marketplace. Tony.
I think we have a different problem. And by that I mean we have digital deserts in the United States. We have places where people don't have good internet. And so if you have people who are not able to access the internet, then consequently, they are not able to access the AI features. Now, to answer your question, I would say that it should be available to everyone from the standpoint that it is, I would like to think, an opportunity for people to level up in terms of their education, and maybe even speak to our earlier conversation about training and people being able to improve themselves. And so that's my answer to your question. Yes, it should be, but we have some other things, some other infrastructure issues that we have where people, and even so, some people have internet, but it's not adequate. It's, we're 5G, and in certain communities, and I can speak freely about places in Georgia where there are communities where people are only able to get 3G broadband, and they are locked out of being able to go to another provider because of the politics in particular cities. And so this is all you can get. You don't like it, move.
Right.
Sell your house.
You get what you get. You don't get upset. Dave, go for it.
Here in Google land, you can get a nonprofit full service, all you can eat service from Google and Google Documents and Meet and all the rest. It's available to any nonprofit organization pretty much across the whole world. All you have to do is sign up for it, prove you're a nonprofit, prove that you're an ongoing nonprofit, and that you're going to make use of it with your membership or anybody else involved. All of the communities in my city are all signatories to this free Google full service. I think it's a service Google gives because it helps them become the brand just as Microsoft and Apple got into education and tried to make it the brand. I like Tony's notion that if everybody had access to AI, it does level the field. I don't like the idea that I can only pay for the free stuff until it runs out my points, and then I have to wait. And that's a lot like, network television. So I think if I were to use, I'll give up that metaphor. I think here, okay, I'll tell you, I'm going to sound like I'm bragging here, but a good 25 years ago, my provincial government, your state level, decided to spend a great deal of money, $800 million, wiring fiber to every town.
Feeling jealous.
Yeah. So I've got fiber anywhere in Alberta, and we do justice over the wire, medicine over the wire, education over the wire. We do consultations for counseling at a distance where a man can't be in the same room as his kid. And so you can have a counseling session with them as long as they come in over video. The only reason I know about this is I had to train all those people how to use video back in the mid 2000s. Right. So I think the solution is simply to accept the fact that corporations don't provide anything without having to pay for it. And you can't be a corporation. So I think if we legislate that, OpenAI has to be open because it's in the word, and we're going to legislate that you have to make it available to every citizen as a utility. I also think the internet should be a utility too. We've solved the electricity problem, the plumbing problem, the water supply. Well, not everybody. Some of our reserves still don't have clean water, but we have that leveling out that can happen if somebody intervenes in the process. And of course, I'm speaking from this perspective of a strangely socialist mixed economy that seems to serve people at great distance from each other, because you guys don't have the distances we have up here, and it costs a heck of a lot more to put fiber in the ground than the distances we have.
Dave,
so
Dave you know, Dave, that pork and beans no longer has to have pork in it. The soup has been legislated that it's the brand name now, and so physically you do not have to have pork in your pork and beans soup can. Just
good,
anyway,
I'm a vegetarian. It's not kosher.
But you know what?
The question
of
chips aren't chips anymore, are they?
Also,
Pringles
pork would probably
not
not be
chips,
something.
Yeah.
But I was wondering where this money was coming from. Reading further down in your CNN Business article here, Dave, it says in March it was trying to raise 40. Now you're talking about $1 million, Dave. Well, they were trying to raise $40 billion, led by SoftBank Group, and somewhere in there is Microsoft, and they were giving it a $300 billion valuation. And again, you don't invest in something that's not going to give a return. So
this reminds me.
That's just a whole lot of zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this whole conversation reminds me of early 1990s when we were talking about the internet and how everyone was going to subscribe and pay for it. And we built an entire business model that will give a little bit for free, and then people will want more and they will pay more. And in fact, that didn't happen. So the money that, like, we are not subscribing to Facebook. They are not getting their money in the way that the business model was planned, which is we will want this beautiful thing that we will be willing to pay for it. And in fact, the internet said, the users said, yeah, I'm not willing to do that. So it's still not free. We are the product now, and they have found other ways to make that money. But all this talk about like subscriptions and things like that, we did this already, and it like completely blew up because everybody built their whole business model on something that the audience said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So this isn't the final business model. It's just not going to work because people are not going to say, we're all being torn with these subscriptions. This subscription model at some point is going to blow up because we're like paying a little bit here and a little bit there. And at some point we're gonna be like, yeah, I'm not paying for anything anymore. I don't care. I'll find something else.
I'm not sure.
It depends on whether you're professional or not, because if I don't have a lot of money, I'm not poor, but I don't have a lot of money, and I will go for the free option, and I will only do 3 rabbit holes a day instead of more. But someone who's doing a professional thing where they need a particular service, they'll pay the subscription and they will get what they need. And I think that model is working just fine for a lot of companies.
because they're supplementing with advertising and selling people's data. So it is not
Maybe
there. It's not free. It's not free. Your free version is being paid for in some way.
and my
So
free version is the come on. It's the bait. It's the let us get you hooked. And when you get tired of having to stop at 3 rabbit holes, and you go and pay some money.
Can I just
So
say, that works.
it works.
I am proof that I have spent so much money in Lovable.dev because I started on the free plan and I just kept building and I wanted to fix this, I want to do that. It's absurd, but it hooks you in, it gets you in. What we're talking about with OpenAI though, and we've gone astray a little bit, which is fine, is the idea of being a nonprofit. And nonprofit is different than free, right? Nonprofit is
right.
works on a set of values that believes, perhaps going back to what Tony was saying, that everyone deserves access. Not that we're going to give it as a freemium and you can have the crappy version and everyone else can have the good version, but instead we're going to build something that everyone can have equal access to. At least that's how I understand the conversation. And I believe that
But are
at least
they
what these
like?
well, wait, I think what these companies are saying is that they want everyone to have equal access. I think what these companies have to be doing is answering to their shareholders.
I think they're weighing
to their programs.
whether or not they can be a profitable company, and they're realizing they can't be in a business standpoint, and they're staying nonprofit and saying out loud that it is for the good of the people.
Really?
I honestly do. If they
Okay.
thought they could make the money, if they thought that they could go forward, they would. I don't believe that it's altruistic in that, because this is a business. And it doesn't mean that they don't hold both values. They can also say, well, I really believe this to be true in my heart. But if they're trying to be a for-profit company, then that value doesn't matter. It's, can you make that money? And I think we're at the point where we were with the .com era, where they're like, we're going to put money into this, and it's in the research and development with the expectation that we can sell this product to people and they're going to subscribe. People are not going to subscribe. The average person is not going to subscribe for $200 a month, which is what they were saying. Like, that's not realistic. So that means that your pool of people who are able to spend that money is limited to people who can spend that money.
Yeah.
So is it more profitable to stay a nonprofit? And well, yes, you get to continue with your values, which is half of your company. But if you can make money, you will be for profit.
And then nonprofit is different than philanthropic. And there's the confusion.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Nonprofit-
It's a taxable difference. Everything is different about it.
A
So,
nonprofit
philanthropic
still has
is not epiphany, sorry, is empathy.
Right.
all right, so wait, we're gonna get there. Hold on, I just want, so Bobby World from YouTube is saying, and I could not agree more, I will pay whatever I find value in, and that's right. So I'm gonna go back to Gemini for a second, to Google's Gemini, because there was a lot of news from Google's Gemini this week about the new 2.5 Pro model. I keep going back because I'm a Google user. I keep going back and using it. I keep trying, and it fails me every time on the most basic, simple tasks. And so because of that, I don't pay for it. I take the same query and I put it somewhere else in OpenAI, and I immediately get the answer. And so I pay for that. People will pay for what they find value in, I think. Lois, last word.
last word. Okay, a nonprofit doesn't mean that you don't need money. There's a nonprofit radio station here in town, KDRT. I'm on it. I love it. We're all volunteers. We still need money to keep the station going. And so what we do is we ask people to send us money. If we had something to sell and we could sell that to make enough money to keep the station going, I would not consider that to be violating a nonprofit, as long as the money is being used by the station for the station and it isn't going to some overlord who is just collecting rent.
That's exactly how it works. I mean, I'm my temple has a multi-million-dollar budget, but we're a nonprofit. None
Yeah.
of us are getting rich off of the work that we do or the money that we make. All right, I am going to skip right over therapy. I had a private therapy session earlier, but I want to skip over because I know that Sky has a hard out at 10 Eastern, and I want to make sure that we get his voice in here. So we're going to jump
Oh,
right
bless you.
in. What?
Said, bless you.
Oh, no, bless you, my friend. So we're going to jump right in here to how technology is shaping empathy in the digital age.
Yes.
Lois, will you please start us off? Define for us what you think we mean when we're talking about empathy.
Okay. And my question is the difference between empathy and sympathy. That's what I started with when this topic came up. So I did a little research, and this is the definition I have in front of me. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It involves stepping into someone's shoes and experiencing the world from their perspective. This means you feel with them, sharing their emotions. Now, sympathy, and there's this great little picture here, little thing. Sympathy is when something happens and I say, well, I'm so sorry that whatever, your dog died, your kid died, but whatever the bad thing was, I'm sorry. Empathy is I had that same experience, and therefore I feel for you because I know what it's like. And so in my mind, that leads me to go, all right, I have no kids. I've never had a dog. Does that mean I wouldn't be able to have empathy with someone who had a disaster in their life that I didn't share? Can I only be empathetic with people who are like me? And that just didn't sound right. So back to you, David. What do you think empathy is?
Well, rather than answer that question, I just want to add to the dilemma that you just posed, which is that when technology enters the conversation, the question is no longer can one person truly feel empathy for another? Can you ever truly walk in the footsteps of another person? I'll just say, standing on one foot, that I don't believe that you can ever walk in the footsteps of another person. I think that when you have shared experiences, you will then perhaps have a shared vocabulary, which will allow you to communicate more easily than you may be able to communicate with others about that experience with whom you didn't share. But I, I am David. You are Lois. You are Tony. You are Dave. I will never know how you're feeling ever, um, and that times multiplied by whatever when it comes to technology, knowing how I feel, being able to empathize with me, all those questions. Sky, go ahead.
Well, as this conversation begins, the thought of I am a human. David, you are a human. Dave, Tony, Tamara, Lois. So these tools that we use are technology, but I understand a social being as humans, and whether the introvert or extrovert component is a part of the conversation, the social being is a part of our construct. Now, I'm not a psychologist, not an anthropologist, and this is where Dave's going to come in and set me straight. But in the social beingness of humanity, where and how do these tools either help us or get in its way? And Dave's going to answer.
Okay, I'll take the mantle. Empathy requires imagination. You have to imagine another person's life. And it's hard for people to do that sometimes because they have limited capacity for imagination, or they have no direct experience with that situation. My younger brother had an illness, well, not an illness, a condition called cerebral palsy. And it made it physically difficult for him to do things. He was all there in the head, but he wasn't able to do some things. He was never employable. Now, he taught me from a young age, because of course we were brothers from when I was young, and I learned to be able to read him. And I've been able to apply that knowledge in meeting real other disabled people and neurodivergent people and know how to respond to what I imagine. And because of my experience, I have that kind of model in my head of what that person's life experience is, how they deal with how people react to them, how they deal with their own limitations, and the various coping strategies you'll see them employing discreetly. You probably won't even notice it, but they deploy all kinds of strategies to maintain a social order and a inclusion. I think empathy opens a door for you to be able to change someone else's idea of reality. They are able to influence you, and you are able to influence them, and empathy is that doorway. And because there's a lowering of imagination, and I think it's probably a great master's thesis to do this with technology, is that every technology we have to adapt to. And we're not adapting well to the internet. We're employing strategies which would be more like warfare than they are like civilization building. And somebody wants to win the internet. They want to have success over. They want to attract the largest audience possible, and they'll do tricks and play games with people about how they feel. And TikTok is full of this stuff. Now, sorry about that. I apologize. The way things go that way, we're in trouble technologically because people, as it said in your notes, people are building technologies without taking this into consideration, that everyone constructs their own reality based on the tools they're using and the kind of technologies they absolutely rely on, like a wheelchair. And if you can't be empathetic to somebody who's in a wheelchair, there is definitely something missing in your life. So I'll leave it there. I could go on at length about my brother spent a lot of time talking to politicians directly and telling them that when you're disabled, what is going to be your problem? It's inevitable. I mean, I'm already disabled. I will be more disabled if I break my arm. I will be more disabled if I, have a cast on my leg. I'm going to have a car accident perhaps, and then I'll be disabled. These are temporary situations for you and me, but they're permanent for many people. So neurodivergence is all over the internet right now, but it's being watered down because everybody thinks they have it. It's like a psychology. We all think we have one. And it's like television. I've watched a lot of it. I know how to make it. So yeah, I kind of use the road rage thing. We are isolating ourselves with our technology, and therefore we want to impose our will on other people through that technology. And that's the primitive approach. The way back when train guys ran the show, we had to have regulation for what kind of safety and rail to run them on and all that. So we're still getting to that point of having to understand what it's doing to us first, and then how we would like it to not affect the society we hope to have. So empathy is missing in the world through technology, but it isn't inescapable. We can adapt. It's just we haven't gotten there yet.
I would agree. I would just build on what you were saying about empathy requiring creativity and imagination. I was a lot of my career has followed two paths. And one of the things that I realized which was an interesting, there wasn't a solution to it, but in teaching where you would want to have empathy, that isn't a requirement to actually do that job. In writing, it is absolutely a necessity to have empathy. You literally can't write if you cannot imagine what someone would do in various situations. And it was always kind of backwards to me because writers have to be incredibly empathetic in a business setting that requires them to also hustle and sell things and do all of these things, which is not the natural state of a creative person. And in education, where I would really want a teacher to have empathy with what a student is going through, that was not a requirement. So some teachers were naturally empathetic, and someone would come in and they'd say, hey, I didn't get my homework done because I was at the hospital last night with my grandmother. And the teacher would say, oh, let's make an arrangement, because they were empathetic to that. Whereas that same student could go into a different teacher and say, I didn't get my homework done. They're like, well, I can't really discuss that with you because that homework is due on that day. There's no empathy. Not a requirement in teaching, because if the homework's due that day, it's due. So I do think that there is a difference between, and I do think it does require imagination to be able to put yourself into someone else's shoes.
Lois, go ahead.
So if you say a writer can be empathetic to a character that they're creating, that means that it's not a two-way thing. I don't have to have another human being on the other side if I'm expressing empathy, but it could be to a character. It could be to a dog or a cat. Could it be to a robot? Could it be to an imaginary friend? If empathy is a one-sided activity, then whatever we come across in our life doesn't determine whether we're empathetic or not.
Sky.
My brother passed away a month ago, and I shared a synthesized eulogy of about a paragraph of what I had done for his funeral, at which I did use the tools of the large language models, because unlike Tamara, I don't, as I'm an actor blessed by having worked with an author that worked really hard at putting words together, and that I could be other people and characters in plays. I've been a part of the editorial process and synthesized the last person on the food chain of creating a story in two-dimensional medium of video. But I had realized just a few years ago, similar to my cooking, I had no idea how to do it. I could get a receipt at a restaurant, but I didn't know, temperature, salt, flavor. But I started learning. And so with this synthesized eulogy that I sent to many friends, I wanted it to open doors for them of empathy with themselves, because what I had been blessed by at the funeral was my brother's acquaintances coming up and kind of collating 4 specific words that I started to see a pattern. And that was the character of my brother. And consequently, I put that into this synthesized text, but it took me a week because, again, I'm not a writer. Even with ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, I tried all the tools because each are different in their approach of creating a meaningful thing. Now, did it give me some flourish? Did I start learning how to stylize and ask for different things? So in the use of a tool for an empathetic experience, both a 15-minute talk as well as a 4-sentence experience, because we receive information differently if we read it versus if we're given it by text or by verbs out loud. So I just wanted to share that as is it the tool or is it the use of the tool?
The tool's a reflection of you. The tool itself, this is where I think we're trying to say, can technology be empathetic? Technology that we have right now is trained by humans, and it is a mirror of what you're putting into it. So it is trained to write well, but it's a mirror of what you put into it. Sky, you said, I want to try to figure out how to put these things that I'm feeling in a space, in an order. Is the AI going, you know what? I'm so empathetic to your feelings. It can say that out loud. And if you use ChatGPT 4.0, it did tell you, Sky, this is a beautiful tribute to your brother, right? But that isn't feeling empathetic. That is having a training by humans who understand the kinds of responses. It's very performative, right? It's performative in nature, but it is a mirror of what you're putting into it.
Tamara, isn't that how we teach empathy to children? We say to children all the time, say sorry. Say, do you know how he feels? Say you're sorry. It is performative before it is real. And so the fact that this is performative now doesn't make me feel any better about the fact that it may just be training itself until it's real.
Are you
some children that you say say thank you or say they don't become empathetic individuals because they don't
Hmm.
have that ability.
Yeah.
They can perform empathy, but that does not mean that internally they feel that way. And I think that's like, I don't believe we're going to get to a point. I think we can train the model to perform empathy, but I don't think you're going to train a computer to actually feel empathy.
That may be true. Let me play devil's advocate here.
Please.
There is one of the things that I just taught this class last night. The idea of commanding emotion is, I think, in religion, one of the most fascinating ideas. Can the Bible or God command emotion, that I feel something? Right? The Bible says, "Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha," love your neighbor as yourself. The Bible says, "Ve'ahavta et Hashem lakecha," love God. It doesn't say
Right.
respect God. It doesn't say do what God says. It doesn't say be nice to your friends. It says love them. And the example that I always give to folks is, as a director of a movie or a show, I could command or direct an actor to cry, but I can't command or demand that they feel sad. I can demand that they perform an action. Now, but here is the interesting piece, is that when someone else performs that action, that performative action of crying, me as the watcher, the viewer of the movie, I often feel empathy for them. So even though they themselves may not be expressing empathy, their performative actions do bring it out or cause it or invite it in other people.
I'm so grateful to be here. And what came to mind was the great prophet in Monty Python, where it has something to do with free choice. To your point of, can God make us do something? But I now have the free choice to step out and be a part of another organization, and the conversations will continue, and the empathy that I have for each of you goes far beyond the sympathy for no, I can't do that. That'll just turn out rude. So I'll stop right there. Bless you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you later. Tony,
Bye.
do you want to jump in here? Or I'm sorry, was it Dave? Go ahead, Dave.
No, I think Tony's first.
Well,
I don't mind following Tony. He always says great things. So go ahead.
I guess I really want to piggyback on what you said, David, in terms of, being able to feel the connection of an actor who may not be actually conveying empathy, but feeling the empathy. I find myself, as I have gotten older, really being more empathetic to a lot of different things. And I'm not sure if it was always that way, or is this something that I am sort of feeling more connected to people. As I was looking over our some of the things that we were going to discuss tonight, I decided to ask ChatGPT what it thought about an empathetic social network. And I got a response. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share it. It says key elements. First is would proprietary prioritize
Prioritize.
prioritize meaningful and respectful interactions, perhaps by encouraging users to share stories and experience that foster connection and understanding. It could incorporate features that promote active listening, such as tools for reflective feedback or prompts that guide users to respond thoughtfully. Additionally, it might use AI moderation to maintain a positive and safe environment, ensuring that discussions remain constructive. Empathy could also be woven into the design by offering mental health resources, encouraging supportive communities, and facilitating real world impact like volunteering or community support projects. Ultimately, a truly empathetic social network would focus on nurturing genuine human connections and fostering a culture of kindness and empathy. And, as I read that, I said, well, that's pretty good. And what I gleaned from it was the most important thing that I think that we've been talking about all night is connection. Is connection.
Mm-hmm.
So for a machine or an AI to have a human connection, can it be prompted to have that? I'm not sure. But what I do know is that the way in which we engage with empathy is because of our human connection. So I guess it's still up in the air. And so with that, I'll say a hand off to you, Dave.
Lois, go ahead.
I would like to refine the definition that we started with tonight. And because I was thinking about watching that movie and feeling something for the actor who is portraying something, empathy is the ability to understand and share the presumed feelings of another person, the perceived feelings of another person. You don't necessarily know if that what you are perceiving is true for that person or that dog or that cat, but you perceive the emotion and you empathize with it. And so I think that is the definition I would like to go away from this discussion with, is that I can be empathetic with someone even if it's an experience I've never personally had, because there might be some other experience that I've had that I can relate to how they're feeling.
If I could come back just for a quick second, I wanted to say this. I sometimes experience, if someone falls, feeling something like that fall, or if someone gets hit, feeling as if I'm getting hit. I'm not sure and that may be just me, with who I am, but I don't know that that is something that could be programmed.
Right.
Tony,
No, I don't think it can.
can I just say, not only am I not sure that that's something that could be, I'm pretty sure it can't be programmed into a computer because we can't even program it into ourselves. I mean,
Right.
it's we ourselves are pretty awful at being empathic.
Speak
But I
for
think
yourself.
some people are good at that though. That's what
Of course,
I
some
think
people
that
are. Some people
we
are good at
can
everything.
we can train people, just like we can, like there's some people who are naturally good at things and other people have to learn to be good at things. So I do think that we can continue to be empathetic and to show kids how to do that and adults how to do that. And we live in a world that does not actively do that. We do not live in a world that actively tries to put other people first. But I do think there are people that is a natural state for them. That is something that they have to actually, like, I mean, I had the experience when we first came into Zoom where I was exhausted because I was literally feeling 25 boxes of people's emotions and what they were going on, and literally had to work with my therapist to say, you can be kind to people and empathetic and sympathetic with them without taking on all of those personal internal feelings. So I do think that it is not necessarily a great thing to be able to do that, David. It can be like really not a good quality. But I do think that people can learn. And I think to that end, you can train a computer to do all the things that look like empathy. But can a computer feel those things? I don't think so. I think it can create an algorithm that looks like that. But I think that one of the problems with empathy right now is we now say you either have it or you don't. And we live in a world that we try to teach kids how to do things, and we try to teach adults how to do, how to be kind. And we do not have evidence of that happening every single day on the news. We have lost our value. We've not valued empathy in a way where that is more important than some of the other things that we do value. And I think whether or not people are naturally empathetic or not, the fact that we don't value empathy just in general in some of the big picture things is a loss. And do I think technology is going to bring that back? I don't, because I think that technology is a reflection of the people who are programming it.
So
It always
one
is,
of the
sure.
things we can do is, and I agree, but I disagree, because I don't want to say the whole world is one particular way. There's lots
yeah.
of people doing
No,
lots
and
of
I'm
different
not.
things. And
No, I
and
don't
when
think
you
anybody
say,
here is. Yeah.
Right.
so the big picture of we've lost our, no, I don't think so. But what we can do is we can give each other permission that if you don't have empathy, you don't have the experience, you aren't able to share that, you can still have sympathy, and it's okay. Sympathy is not bad. If I say, "Oh, I'm sorry you got injured," that doesn't mean I'm a bad person because I'm not being empathetic. It just means that's all I got to give you today, man. So I'm sorry you're having a tough day.
It is my turn
I
now.
think
Okay.
Go
I'll
ahead,
be.
Dave,
I'll
go
be.
ahead.
You're all taking my turn here, and also I have a big grab bag now full of responses I can't give you. Anyway, to Tony's idea that this is something that may not be learned. The thing about the actors is that you're relating to the actor, but you're not connecting. You're relating to a person's performance, and you're enjoying. And we are in a. Every medium we use puts us in a different state. When you're in your car, you're in a different state than you are when you're talking to Dave over a pizza. You're in a different state when you're at work and you're wearing the suit and tie. It's all state, situational, and context. So when you're doing a Zoom call, you're in a particular state of mind. And Tamara has described it quite adequately. Trying to coordinate your feeling about everything people are saying. I go back to the imagination thing, and I remember a toy called a Tamagotchi, and it made children responsible for the existence of a character. And they had to feed it, they had to pay attention to it, they had to play with it, and if they didn't do all the right things, it died. And you could have a Tamagotchi funeral. Well, we don't make tech like that anymore. We don't make it so that it will put you in a situation where you can learn something, where you can take a skill and transfer it to the real world. We're doing it in silos, and we're learning to be a separate thing for everybody. And we're being isolated by our technology. We're separating ourselves from reality, and we're manufacturing a whole new idea of what it is to be a human. And I'm sorry, sympathy is not empathy, and it doesn't come anywhere near it. Sympathy says, I'm so glad I'm not in your situation. Empathy says, I wish I could help you with your situation. And it is an act of empathy, not a response to a situation. So I push back on that one. And I go back to it opening a door to be able to be changed by or change someone else's reality. Because all of our media do this to us. They massage us into cooperating with its parameters. And we're talking about robots all day today. And we're not talking about, Dexter is on the ISIS, the space station. And he's a robot from the waist up. He's even got a face. And they relate to him. But they certainly don't expect empathy from him. And they relate to his situation as if he's a real person. But he's helpful. He can hold things, do things, and make things, or remind you of things. He's great help up in the station. But Dexter gets treated like a crew member but they're not going to be empathetic to his situation because his situation is programmed and it's only built to be a servant on the station. And we talked earlier about Amazon. I mean, the people who learned how to do the sort and pick and stuff and packaging didn't develop a transferable skill. They developed a box making and shipping skill. And I think when we talk about AI being universally applied, this is where our imagination can be exercised. And we do. All the description I've heard, not on this show, but everywhere I go, people talk about, well, I went to AI and I used it to do this. And I think, yeah, you used it to trigger your imagination to come up with something that is more you than what AI can give us. AI doesn't know Dave, and they don't know what I like to talk about, and they know from my my life and my experiences and what's on the net about me that I like a lot of hockey. But you have not really understood hockey until you put skates on and try and do anything that those guys are doing. Then you have empathy when they're frustrated, when they're fighting, when they're pushing on the goalie, because they're feeling stuff. And if you've played it, you can feel it too. I can't be an actor. I've tried it. I've tried to be in front of the camera. It doesn't work for me because I can't let myself disappear. And that's what technology would like us to do. Dave's going to be a prop guy on the show that's called Rundown, and he's going to make little jokes about how things are different up here. But actually, none of you know much about me at all. So I think you can't really have empathy if I came to you with a problem. And certainly I'm not going to do that on Zoom. I'm not going to bring my problems to Zoom because people out there will just go, well, I have to be in a meeting right now. See you. So I'm just back to the thing about actors are really good at making you think they're doing something when in fact they're worried about their paycheck. But you can, as Sky does, submerge himself and be the character. And we appreciate that, and we've done that since we told stories around the fire. When some guy acts out what happened on the hunting party, we all know how to hunt, so we all are relating to that. But empathy is a whole different thing.
So let me jump in.
It can be trained.
Let me jump in and talk about characters for a moment. I got an email today because apparently I signed up for something months ago and I completely forgot about it. It's called.
Didn't we deal with that in therapy? There, you signing up for stuff all the time.
It's called VertWays Conflict Resolution Training Simulation. So this is it.
De-escalation stuff.
Drops me in. And I can walk around, and there are other people that are in here. Okay. And when I get up to them, there are different scenarios that are played out. And so now I'm talking to this person. If I click on him, he will guide me around. If there are other people, and I don't know that there's one person. Okay, so if I go, oops, come on. So if I go up to this person, she's going to start talking to me. And so she's one of the three. The team's been having some tension lately with the proposal, so I appreciate you wanting to talk. How can I help? And now it wants me to respond. And the idea here is that this is supposed to teach me how to be more empathic. This is supposed to
But that's in a workplace scenario. That's a formal arrangement. It's not. Yeah, but it's not empathetic. It's not.
But again, if we go with the premise that some people are empathetic and some people are not, then you are providing a training scenario for people who are not, so that they have a vocabulary to employ empathetic tactics in a situation like that.
Right. So she said, I know the team's been having some tension lately with the proposal, and now it's going to be teaching me about it. It's telling me your question is open and shows genuine curiosity, inviting Emma to share her perspective without pressure. So I said something. That's the trainer, and then the interlocutor. Well, I guess I've noticed that sometimes everyone's working really fast. There isn't always space for everyone's ideas. Whatever. The point is that this tool is not empathic, but it is a tool that could perhaps help me become more empathic. And so there are multiple different angles that we can take here. Can LLMs or machines become empathic? How have they been impacting our relationship to one another and the empathy that we show to one another? And can they help us improve in that respect? And I
If
think
they're
those are
done
all
right,
different
yes, they can. Yeah, like
Yeah.
anything, a tool can be used properly, or it can be used to just make money. And this
Right.
is what we're at. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that tool is very interesting because it is really analyzing interpersonal communication.
Yes.
It's analyzing your interpersonal communication, and if you gave it maybe a not so good response, it would say, what's interesting about what you just did there is that you may not realize this, but the way that you phrase that could be taken this way, and that will give you
Right.
the set of interpersonal skills that you need to make decisions in action, to use different vocabulary, because that's what it's teaching you in
It
that.
says
It's
here, for
saying,
further improvement, you could acknowledge that Emma might prefer to avoid conflict and reassure her that her input is valued even if she feels uncomfortable.
so it's giving you valuable interpersonal
Absolutely.
skills that
Absolutely.
will
Actually,
make
it's
you
giving
feel
you management skills.
right.
It's giving
It's just
both.
giving you management skills.
Is it making
That's
you
what it
more
is.
empathetic, or is it just giving you more tools in your tool bag?
Oh, I absolutely think that
You know what I'm saying?
that tools like this have the potential to help me
You
become
have
more
heard-
empathic. I absolutely
You have heard the description of manager as a person who spends 50% of their time worrying about what a person's feeling.
Right.
It's not about the job. It's about
Right.
getting them motivated, making sure they're on task, understanding their marital issues or whatever is making them inefficient. A manager has to change that resource into a positive, and
Right.
then the person feels good that you understand them and they're willing to get back to what they're doing. And I think this automated system is very interesting, and it could be tailored to social, not
Yeah,
structured
absolutely.
situations. And then you could learn how to talk to a girl, which I had to teach a guy what to do. I found it really funny, the young people that came out of college with graphic artists and all the rest. And he asked me one day, how do you meet girls? And I says, let's go to the window here, because we worked on the second floor across from a college. And I says, you see what it is at lunchtime here? Look at all those girls. Yeah. Go have lunch over there. Just sit around and have lunch. Not be threatening looking or crazy looking, but just become familiar to them as someone who is there every day having their lunch. Maybe they're a student, maybe they're a teacher. I don't know. And then you could approach them and say, I heard you talking about this. I find that very interesting. Is it all right if I join you for lunch? I mean, it happens like that. And I don't, my wife met me at a hockey game, so that's easy to explain. But he did not understand that he had to put himself out there. And I don't know where he is today, and I don't think he's married, but I found it weird that I had to explain that to him because, I come from a big family. You had to get along. Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
We're
folks.
talking about empathy, and I think we've had a dozen different definitions, and most of us agree that machines are never going to have the well, currently at least, machines are never going to have the feelings or share understanding with a human being. And so I think we've answered our question that empathy is not possible from a machine, though it is possible from a human to something that's not human.
Good. Yeah. Imagination in one direction, but
Right.
there's no way the machine can have imagination. Yeah.
All right, my friends.
I just want to say.
Here we go. Tony brings home.
No, I just want to say this. As I was listening to what everyone has said, I think that we're right. But the thing that Lois just said about currently, I think that's what we need to focus on currently. Because I am a science fiction nerd. I mean, I love science fiction. And I believe that I may not see it, but I believe that there will be a holodeck that will create real people virtually that are able to be sympathetic, have empathy, be able to diagnose what the person who is interacting with them is really needing from them. And I believe that will happen. I may not see it. I probably won't see it, but I believe that it will happen. I believe that when our current, the program that you're using right now, David, great grandson program is available, that it may do all that. And
Love it.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for, as a science fiction nerd, that some of the positive human conditions that are portrayed in science fiction come to life.
Yeah,
Agreed.
agreed. All right, friends. Thank you for a lovely conversation. I appreciate all of you so much. I am empathic to the fact that it's getting late for you and for me. And I'm
And
really
I'm sympathetic with your empathy.
thank you. And I'm grateful for all of you being here. Definitely check us out over at therundown.show, and we'll see you next week, every Thursday. Have a great night. Bye-bye.